Let's kick off the video by talking about the interior of the Model S, because that's where Tesla has made most of the improvements for this generation of it. First of all, I decided to go with the white interior, which includes the walnut decor, some chrome trim, just like the other Model S versions, and a red exterior. And I have to say that the combination of the red, white, black, and wood all seamlessly flow together. They look incredible. It makes the cabin feel very futuristic, very open. If you know me, or if you've ever watched any of my other reviews, you know there are two things I really don't like. Number one is gloss black surfaces, because they're extremely hard to clean. Even though they look nice, over time they scratch very easily, they collect a lot of dust, and then they eventually cheapen the look of your car. And number two are hard touch plastics, which are relatively easy to avoid in most cars above $30,000. I'm happy to say that this Model S has none of either of those two things anywhere inside the cabin. In fact, looking around, I don't even see where there is any hard touch plastic in here, other than perhaps the window switches on the door panel. I just think Tesla did a really great job of bumping up the quality of the materials in here. Let's talk a little bit about the seats. I have mentioned in previous reviews, in particular the one I did on the Model Y, that I think that Tesla has the best seats in the automotive industry. It always seems like you have the plushness right where you want it, but it's not overly plush where you're bouncing around over bumps or anything like that. So I really love the way they've designed these seats. In the Model S, they finally re-added ventilation back to the seats, which I have on right now. It's not an overpowering sensation of cold going into your back. It's more than enough if you live somewhere hot like I do in the summer, and the ventilation just has a nice, comforting feeling to it. The seats are also heated as well, of course, but I'm not going to be able to try that feature out for quite some time. And after being in a Model Y and getting into this Model S, I can confirm having two screens, one being directly in front of you with all of your speedometer information, is definitely the way to go. There's nothing wrong with the Model Y or the Model 3 having one single screen, but all of the visualizations for the Model S and X are moved over here in front of the driver, which one, makes it a lot easier to see, especially the speedometer, but two, it clears up the screen in the center so you can get a wide look at the map or any applications or anything like that that you have open. And this is just a much better user experience. I do want to talk about the 17-inch center touchscreen. I'm not going to go through all of the applications and software features. There are tons of videos about that, and maybe that's something I'll dive into later as new features come out. But for today's video, I think the most important note to hit on is that the screen is incredibly responsive. It's powered by an AMD Ryzen chip, which Elon claims is around the level of PS5. And a lot of people often ask, well, if I don't play video games, or I don't play video games in the car, who cares? But I think it's great to highlight that that power can also be used to make sure the screen is very fluid, all the applications load quickly. I don't think anything's close, and if you've seen my channel, you know that I've driven other EVs, a lot of other newer EVs. They're all great in their own way, but they're still a step below Tesla. In this case, the new chips in the 3Y, S, and X are just years beyond what you're going to find anywhere else, and probably going to be beyond what you'll find in those other vehicles for the next 3 to 5 years. A controversial aspect of this car is the yoke steering. I got used to the yoke probably in an hour. It's no big deal, really. Once you get used to it, you drive it around. If maybe you're a slower person to adapt, it takes a couple of days. It becomes second nature. It's just like driving with a wheel, except it feels a little bit different in the palm of your hands. But I haven't been in a situation yet where I felt unsafe or I felt like it's compromised my ability to drive. In fact, most of the time you just see I rest my arm on my leg over here and my other arm on the center armrest, and that's how I drive, and that works for 90+% of situations, including turning. But yeah, the yoke, no big deal. You'll get used to it. What Tesla has done right with the yoke, though, is how they've calibrated the haptic feedback buttons. And I think that is critically important to whether or not people are going to hate this thing. Speaking of buttons, as you probably already know, there aren't a ton in here. You have the two scrolly buttons on the yoke itself. You have the touch buttons down here for the hazard lights and shifting into drive, reverse, neutral in case your screen fails. I know a lot of people don't like that, but I really believe this is the BlackBerry to iPhone transition that's about to happen. Having all touchscreens means a lot of flexibility in updating the software in the future, making it better based upon feedback. If you think about it, Tesla can completely rework this screen, change the location of all the buttons, change all the menus. They could change the complete design of the UI that you see. And they can do all that at a very low cost outside of paying software engineers. Whereas if you have these physical buttons all over your steering wheel, all over the dash or IP somewhere, once the buttons are there, they're there, and that's what everyone lives with until the car goes to the junkyard. Let's chat a little bit about the sound system in the Model S. This was one of the areas I was a bit concerned about after reading initial reviews of owners who got their cars last May, June, July. A lot of them said that the sound system in the Model S was either just on par with the Model 3/Y or perhaps even worse. I do believe Tesla has launched a software update which enabled the subwoofer or something like that, but all I can say is I got in my car, I turned up the immersive sound all the way to high, I messed with the settings, and this sound system is incredible. I have to say the sound system in here is certainly a step above. It's worth the billing that Tesla has given it. I can only imagine it's going to get better, but you're not going to be disappointed whatsoever in the sound system. Let's talk a little bit about the driving dynamics of the Model S now. Now again, this car is 196 inches long, it weighs 4,500 pounds. It's a very long and wide vehicle, and on top of that, it has extremely large tires. So I have the 19-inch wheels, and there are 255 width tires on the front, 285 on the back. I can say this car handles for something of this size like a dream. That's a good segue into the cabin noise. Where Tesla has really outdone itself is the wind noise and the surrounding noise from the vehicles going by and other ambient noises like construction sounds. You can't hear, quite honestly, almost anything, even with no music playing, no media going on. You get a very low hum when vehicles go by. And even with the wind, yesterday I was out driving, it was 20 miles an hour into the face of the car, so going into a headwind, and you could just get the very low end of the wind blowing into your face. Outside of that, the wind noise and the other ambient noises are well controlled in the Model S cabin, so an A+ for me. What isn't quite an A+ right now is the road noise from these very thick tires. I know some Model S vehicles have received the active road noise reduction update. This one hasn't, but the Plaid I test drove last week or a couple weeks ago did, and I can tell you inside that vehicle, the active road noise reduction made absolutely no difference whatsoever. I do look forward to Tesla updating that software and seeing what they can do with it. In terms of visibility in the Model S, outside the front, you have a really great view of the road and everything surrounding you. The A-pillars are a little thick, but certainly not terrible. The rear view is a little bit different. It's very sloped. And for some reason, there's a little bit of a distortion going on at the bottom of the glass that causes the lines in the cars behind you, if they're close, to be wiggly or wavy. I'm not sure what's going on there. I'm gonna see if Tesla can fix that glass for me, but it's okay. It's not great, it's not horrible, but about what you'd expect from a hatchback design, I think. Now the C-pillars back there are very thick and create big blind spots. So you're gonna be relying a lot on your side view mirrors, which luckily are pretty decent size for this vehicle to be able to see in those blind spots. One of the things I would like to complain about is that Tesla still hasn't implemented a real blind spot monitoring system where you can see a little light or hear a little sound when someone's in your blind spot if you try to turn the signal on. What they have done instead is updated the software so that a camera feed will appear here in the bottom center of your screen, and you can actually see what the camera is seeing. That's super helpful. My only one complaint is that the camera feed should be at the top of the screen in your line of sight versus at the very bottom. The Model S, like it has since day one, comes with an air suspension. Taking it on pavement around here that's not in great shape like the one I'm currently on, the air suspension is soaking up all these little bumps and it's keeping the ride very smooth. It's one of my favorite features of the Model S, and I hope one day that Tesla brings it to the Model 3 and the Model Y. I don't know if they ever will, but everyone should be able to enjoy this level of ride quality that the air suspension provides. And I can tell you that if someone says that the Model S, this version, the base version, compares to the acceleration of the Model S Plaid in any way, they're absolutely lying to themselves and they're lying to you. I don't know how to describe the Model S Plaid acceleration other than to say it's extremely violent, that causes your blood to rush out of your hands and out of your feet. And it's almost so quick that you don't really even know what's going on. In this car, I've only launched it a couple of times and it goes 0 to 60 in 3 seconds. That's what it's rated at. Now, I don't think that includes rollout, so it's probably closer to 2.7, 2.8, doesn't really matter. But there's a noticeable, perceptible difference. and I noticed it immediately. This car is still quick, it's still fun to drive, it's still more than you ever need, but the Plaid is in another tier by itself that only supercars that are $1+ million can touch, and most of those can't even touch it. This car is quicker than most people will ever need to go. With that, thank you so much for watching my video.